I invite you to close your eyes if you are comfortable in doing so, or let your eyes go softly out of focus. Stretch if you need to. Let your hands rest gently on your lap. Put your feet flat on the floor. Now focus on your breathing. Take a deep breath. As you exhale, feel the tension leave your body as you relax in this safe and welcoming environment. Take another deep breath, and as you let it out, open your heart, your mind, and your soul to the loving presence of God. And on your next exhale, I invite you to focus on your heart space and turn your attention to love. As you breathe in and out, allow yourself to feel the loving energy in this sanctuary. Feel the love rippling out from the people around you, from Reverend Mickey, Carolyn, the musicians, the ushers, guys in the sound booth, the chaplains, those preparing fellowship, and all who chose with love to be here today. And now let your heart open to all the loving people you know. As the awareness of this love fills your heart, you may think of a special person who loves you. Perhaps a romantic partner, a family member, a close friend, a neighbor. If pets are important to you, think of the joy in knowing their unconditional love. Each sentient being who loves you reflects the Spirit of God on earth. Now let your heart remember those loved ones who may no longer be with you physically, those who have transitioned to a life in spirit, or those whose lives took them in a different direction. That love you shared with each other lives on in your heart. And now return your attention to yourself. Feel a glow of peace around you as you remember that you are a beloved child of God. You were born knowing how to give and receive love. Affirm to yourself silently, I am a loved and loving human being. I am a loved and loving human being. And now let all the love that is in you flow from the center of your heart outward to touch all those you love. Imagine it being carried by the Spirit of God within you, lighting up everything and everyone it touches. Let those you love feel warmed by the light of that love. And the miracle is that as your love expands, it grows. Love is limitless. Feel it flowing out from your heart to your home, to your neighborhood, to your community, to your country, and beyond. Feel that love traveling along a bright network of glowing hearts, all connected with each other and with the universe. Your love is so big, it carries the light of God to the world. And as you sit in silence, affirm to yourself, I am a loved and loving human being. I am a loved and loving human being. As you affirm these words, bask in the love that is yours to have, to hold close, and to share in the silence. And as you come back to the present moment, continue to feel the loving energy in this room. When you are ready, open your eyes and know that you are loved. Amen.
Well, it's good to see you this morning. A gentleman came to me before service, and it just really touched my heart. He had witnessed a terrible head-on collision just recently, and asked, could we offer up prayer and loving energy toward first responders in our area, and I think that'd be thoroughly appropriate. Take a breath with me if you would. God, we just extend now our loving energy toward those that respond to accidents, those that respond to emergencies. God, we just speak grace and help for them and strength seeing things they can unsee and yet having the grace to be able to handle it. So God, we just extend our love to them and thanks for them. Amen. Thank you, God. I want to tell you about a story I heard concerning an old Jewish synagogue in Eastern Europe. They recite regularly what the Jewish people call the Shema, or the traditional, uniting prayer of Israel. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, the Shema. And this particular Sabbath, they were reciting the Shema. Half the congregants stood up and half remained seated. The half that was seated started yelling at those standing to sit down. And the one standing yelled at the one sitting to stand up. The rabbi, educated as he was in the law and commentaries, didn't know what to do. His congregation suggested he consult a housebound 98-year-old man who was one of the original founders of the temple. The rabbi hoped the elderly man would be able to tell him what the actual temple tradition was for the Shema. So he went to the nursing home with a representative of each faction of the congregation. The one whose followers stood during Shema said to the old man, "Is the tradition to stand during this prayer?" The old man answered, "No, that is not the tradition." The one whose followers sat asked, "Is the tradition to sit during Shema?" The old man answered, "No, that is not the tradition." But the rabbi said to the old man, "The congregants fight all the time, yelling at each other about," he said, "that is the tradition." And I got to thinking how we settle for things emotionally at times. Isn't that true? You ever heard of somebody that just fly off the handle, lose their temper all the time, and you try to talk to them, "Oh, it's just me. That's the way I am." Is it? You ought to consider, does it have to be that way? And so, he's just grouchy. That's his nature. But does it have to be? Sometimes we settle for things in the emotional realm that can be changed. Isn't that true? And so I want to start a series called Feeling Our Way, or Processing Feelings and Emotions. And the title is kind of reminiscent of when you go into a dark room. You ever go into a dark room and you can't see, and you're kind of feeling around, and you might hit a table and call it something other than a table, and you know how it is, feeling your way in darkness. That's how it can be in the emotional realm at times. Our feelings are tripping us up, and we need to be able to manage them better and more properly. Like going into a dark room, one of the best things you do is just stand for a minute, and what happens? The eyes begin to adjust, and you hopefully won't hurt yourself. Let there be light, Dave. Thank you so much. But and of course we know feeling our way in a darkened room, accident and injury can result, can't it? It can be more than a stubbed toe. I mean, it can be serious stuff. So in the spiritual or emotional realm, it depends a great deal on how we process our feelings. War and peace related to how people are feeling. Wars have erupted over national feeling, national sentiment being so strong that it resulted in conflict and bloodshed. The stock market is greatly affected by how people are feeling about the economy. Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors that's ever lived, he said there's a lot of things you can predict in markets, but you can never predict how people are going to be feeling on a given day. And how many know it affects all aspects of life? Our workplace, the harmony of the workplace, the harmony of the family, the harmony of the church family is all made or broken based on how we handle feelings and emotions. As we know, the most popular thing for a therapist to say, it's part of their stock and trade. How did that make you feel? How did that make you feel? What were your emotions like during this incident? Very important. Now, unity, we're all about enlightening our consciousness, isn't that true? To the Christ within, and bringing us out of darkness, out of pure sense consciousness, into a more enlightened place. We're all about that. And in order to do that, we really need to understand, properly manage emotions. One of the founders of Unity, Mr. Charles Fillmore, spoke concerning what emotion is. He said, emotion is undisciplined or uncontrolled force. So often it is, isn't it? Subnormal or supernormal activity of mental or physical forces. Excitement of the feelings. It is found that for each bad emotion, there is a corresponding chemical change in the tissues of the body that is life-depressing and poisonous. Contrary, every good emotion makes a life-promoting change. Thus it follows that it pays to think good thoughts and do good things for one's own sake. Isn't that true? Because it really benefits us more than even the person that we're helping. And so Mr. Fillmore was really ahead of his time in recognizing the role of emotions in physical health. Now it's something that we're more aware of probably than ever before. Now more than ever, we know that stress can kill. Isn't that true? Literally, if it's not managed properly. And in his book, Dr. S.I. McMillan, his book, None of These Diseases, he said, medical science recognizes that emotions such as fear, sorrow, envy, resentment, and hatred are responsible for many of our sicknesses. Estimates vary from 60 to 100%. One patient was told by his doctor, if you don't cut out your resentments, I may have to cut out your intestinal tract. And it's real, ain't it? Emotional well-being is extremely important. We have being a Star Trek nerd, I always go back, to the characters from that show. And we have two excellent examples of the two extremes concerning the emotional and the intellectual. In the emotional, it's represented by Captain Kirk, Captain James Tiberius Kirk. And he just lets his emotions out, man. Bones, there's people down there. We got to do something. And, he just lets it out. And then you have Mr. Spock. Yes, Captain. Let's logically consider this next step we need to take. And so we see two extremes there, the very emotional and the very intellectual. How many know they're both important? I come from a religious background that really valued emotion because a lot of noise. The more you holler, the more God is with you. And there's a place for emotion, certainly. And then there's the other, more liturgical or traditional that's very intellectual, very cerebral, And they're both valuable. They both have their place. I know we just came out, Valentine's Day, a time we celebrate romantic love. And how many romantic love is an emotional thing, isn't it? When I met Carolyn, I didn't, now may I have a background on you, please? I'd like a genetic workup. I'd like, ancestral. If you get this information for me to get, before we meet. I remember before I met Carolyn, there was this woman I met online dating. That's how Carolyn and I met, online dating. And she said, before we go anywhere, I want to take a picture of your driver's license and send it to my sister in case. And I couldn't say that was a bad idea in the climate that we live in. Thankfully, Carolyn didn't require that much documentation when I met her. But it was very emotional. I didn't go, clinically and intellectually. I looked at her and said, wow. And my emotions were greatly in charge. But that's how we are, isn't it? There's an emotional side and there's a very analytical side. And some of us vary toward one or the other. And most of us fall somewhere in the middle. Isn't that true? But they're both important. And concerning Christianity, we see those two elements. We see Kirk with a very emotional point of view, and we see Spock with a very intellectual point of view. And they're both important in our lives. So how do we bridge them into what Paul called the more excellent way? Let's look at that today. How many are familiar with the book, The Eye of the Storm by Gary Simmons? Oh, several of us. It's an excellent book, life-changing book. I highly recommend it. Allow me to read just a bit from that and quote, because he hits on the key of what it means to bridge that gap of the intellectual and the emotional in the concept of being centered. He quotes Thomas Crum, there is no true path without center. With center, the mind, body, and spirit merge. Passion and commitment unleash a force that cannot be contained. Centeredness is a true psychophysiological phenomenon that affects everything in our environment. The key to embracing conflict is finding center. You cannot be non-resistant or present to your life experience unless you are centered. Now catch this. This really stood out to me. Being centered is a mind-body experience that occurs when your attention and awareness form a bridge between the experience and your center. Everyone has a center. Turn to somebody, you got a center. Everybody has a center. It's a psychophysical place in the body. Your center is approximately 1.5 inches below your navel, between your stomach and spine. In essence, it is your center of gravity. Not only does everyone have a center, everything has a center. The center is the point in space around which the activity of matter and energy are in perfect equilibrium. The eye of a hurricane is a center. The axle of a wheel is a center. The stationary point from which a pendulum swings is the center. Centers are both physical and intangible. There is nothing at the eye of the hurricane. How many know that is an extraordinary phenomenon? Because there, everything is calm and peaceful, while all around the circumference, it's raging. So there's nothing at the eye of the hurricane, yet there is a functional place where the forces of the storm are in perfect harmony. And that's where we want to be, isn't it? We want to be the eye of the storm. It's raging all around, but we're cool. Isn't that right? That's how I want to be. When I realized I lost my portfolio, I got out of the eye there for a bit, didn't I, dear? And got a bit irate. And it's like losing a friend. I mean, I kind of mourned. You know, I realized how much I treasured that thing. Maybe it's good I lost it. I don't know. But still keep looking for it, please. But let me read just a little more from Mr. Gary. He said, by shifting our awareness from the circumference to the center, we change how we relate to our experience. We become present to our life experience and able to do the next thing, extend energy. He said the extension of energy is also psychophysical dynamic. When you feel love toward another person, your thoughts and feelings of love extend your energy field to the one you love. When you pray for someone, your prayer consciousness is an extension of your energy to the other person. And when you're in conflict, you do the opposite of extending energy. You contract. You distance yourself from your adversary. You avoid contact. While these tactics protect you from threat, they reinforce your sense of separation and exacerbate the issues that trigger upset. When you consciously choose to become centered, you naturally stay connected to your partner. This positive connection provides you with an opportunity to value the relationship by entering into dialogue and heartfelt communication. And it's so true. That's why it's so easy in the political climate in our country for people to hurl negative stuff at each other because there's enough distance, especially on social media. They may be in another part of the world and you'll never meet them. But so you feel free to extend that because we're separated. But when we're close to somebody, it's very different, isn't it? We get to look in their beady little eyes and realize this is a person like me and they have thoughts and feelings like I do. I had a great experience with this back last year. There was a guy I went to high school with, And he seemed to, I know he didn't have a job because all I ever saw was posts continually coming out on social media of a very negative nature, political and religious. How many know the two big ones to get negative about? Politics and religion. He majored in that. He specialized in it. It would seem to be his life. And it was constantly sending. I would send back my 2 cents, which he didn't want and he didn't like. And we'd hurl these back and forth, and after a year of that, I thought, this is going nowhere. I'm staying mad all the time. Neither of us are changing our point of view. I'm just going to quit. And I did, much for my own health. Well, then he messaged me. It wasn't, on Facebook. He sent me a message on Messenger and said, how come you ignore me? Nobody talks back to me. Nobody wants to address me. And I thought, why is that, you think? But I got to thinking, he must be very lonely and very isolated. I thought, I'm going to see if I can take him out to lunch. I know it sounds nuts. I thought it sounded nutty at the time. But somehow or other, I felt like, I think this guy's lonely and isolated, and I should do something for him. And he lived like an hour and a half away in my hometown. I said, hey, you want to go out to lunch? I'm going to be in the area. I'd love to see you. He said, okay. He was perplexed. And I determined that I was going to steer us away as much as I could from any of the stuff he was always posting. And I managed to do that. Mainly, you remember high school, some of the people we knew in high school, some of the funny and weird stuff that happened, we kind of stayed on that. And before you know it, he was opening up. He had lost his wife of like 40 years. And she told me the beautiful love story of how they met and how dear she was to him. It just really got me. And I realized this is just a lonely, isolated man. After he lost her, it's just like he gave up. He put on 100 pounds and he was posting all the time, all this negative energy he was putting forth. But I realized he was lonely, man. He's isolated. And I had a good time with him. We stayed away from all that stuff. And I realized if I could be close to him, I wasn't going to contract. I was going to extend. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And I genuinely enjoyed being around him. I never thought I would say that. And I said, let's drive around and look at the old high school and stuff. And I said, sometime soon I'd like to do this again. And I really meant it. I couldn't believe it. I meant it. And I actually tried to get with him before I moved, and he was unavailable. But I said, next time I'm in the area, I'm going to get back with you. And I saw so clearly how when there's this negative thing coming, we contract, we withdraw, and there's no way healing can occur. But when we extend energy of love, it's an enormous difference, isn't it? And that's the point of learning to live from center. Because center ties intellect and emotion together and enhances them both. Living from center is the more excellent way. Connecting experience to our center will ensure we respond in emotionally healthy ways. Jesus was our way shower, and he exhibited all kinds of emotions. He was happy, he was sad, he was angry, he was overwhelmed, and yet he remained centered throughout all that. And so can we. How many? It don't mean you're emotionless when you're centered. Like Spock, cold, and it's a way of managing. You see, living from center empowers us to live at the highest level in our thinking and our emotions. Center can be likened to a connection I like to call we had when we came into this human experience through connection to the umbilical cord, to our mother. Anybody remember your umbilical cord? Probably not. But nevertheless, it was there. And it is what connected us to the placenta in our mother's body. And it was our source of oxygen and nutrients while we were developing as babies. And I liken this to the center connected to our universal mother, if you will, that divine mother energy. Paul spoke of it in Galatians 4. He said, but the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all. Jerusalem, the habitation of peace. And say we all came connected, through the placenta and our belly button. How many innies do we have here? I'm an innie. How many outies? How many don't want to say? But we all came in with that connection to our mother. And so there's also a connection to our universal mother. And Paul spoke of the Jerusalem which is above, the mother of us all. Mr. Fillmore said Jerusalem is the habitation of peace, the spiritual center in consciousness. In humanity, it is the abiding consciousness of spiritual peace. When we go deep into the silent recess of our beings, we realize a stillness and sweetness beyond expression. Oh, that's nice. Center is the umbilical cord of spiritual life. As we develop in Christ's consciousness, we are drawing these divine nutrients and becoming more and more connected to center, and therefore well able to manage feelings and emotions and not be controlled by the circumference of our life, but remaining at the center. Don't you want to be there? I want to be there. Turn to somebody and say, I want to be there. So for the next several Sundays, we'll be talking about, feeling our way, managing our emotions. So I hope you can be with us. Stand with me if you would. Let's make our affirmation in closing. As always, you've been so kind and so attentive. I do appreciate it. Would you repeat after me, please? I am connected to our universal mother. I am a divine being having a human experience. I think things. I feel things. I do all from the glorious power of center. Oh, thank you so much. You can have your seats. Bless you. Thank you for your time and being with us today.